The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 162.
Oi! Don't be scared. All of this is new to you and new can be scary. When people need help, I never refuse. There's this moment when you're sure you're about to die, and then you're born. I know exactly who I am. I'm the Doctor. Ta-da! Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who. And today we're discussing Fugitive of the Judoon, the latest episode in Series 12. Joining me today on the panel are Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. And Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, if you can, do us a huge favor to help us out by writing a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community of listeners and reach more folks with this very fun, interesting, and educational, I hope, podcast. So let's get right into it and talk about this big episode of Doctor Who featuring the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker. All right. What do you think? What's your first impression? Who wants to go first? Father Corey, what'd you think?
As I mentioned kind of between recordings here, I go, I kind of sounded like David Tennant at the end of it. What? What was that? What?
Was that a good what or a bad what?
Oh, it was good. I enjoyed the episode, but there's a lot of little twists in this episode that were really not expected.
Okay. Jimmy, what was your overall impression?
Overall, I liked it. I thought that I really like, and as we get into it, I'll explain why. But I really liked this episode. I thought it was one of the best things so far from the Chibnall era. And I had some trepidation because, they'd been hinting something big is coming. And I thought, yeah, we'll see. And then there's a little before the midpoint of this. Actually, it's about a quarter of the way in. We have a twist. And I thought, if this is the twist, I'm really going to be disappointed.
Right.
And because I'm not enthusiastic about this twist. And then as we went further into the episode, I started thinking this is going in an interesting direction. And then they started fleshing out my own personal headcanon, which is consistent with things they've established previously on the show. And so I really like that.
Okay. All right. We'll get into that. I also really enjoyed this episode. I saw a few things coming, but I have a tendency to be able to figure some things out. The twists that writers like to write, I kind of have my head around that. But I did like the things I didn't expect. There were elements of this that I totally didn't see coming. And I feel like what has happened is that Chibnall has introduced a whole new arc, a whole new big picture arc that we're going to be exploring for what I hope this isn't in next episode we've settle it or something. I think this is a big thing that we're going to be exploring, which is good.
Suddenly it became interesting again.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have the Judoon, who we last saw actually in Face the Raven with the quote unquote death of a companion. Spoilers, it was Clara who didn't die. Yep. But we saw the Judoon in that episode. But they really are monsters created in the Russell T Davies era.
I liked the Judoon in this much better than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Number one, the makeup is a little better, and number two, the performance is better. Instead of delivering their language in monotone, rojo, bojo, ho, whoa, they're not doing that. They're giving us some inflection.
Right.
And that makes it much less annoying because otherwise it's a comic gimmick. And so getting the inflection in the performance is nice. Also, we get to see the Judoon being what they are, which is police for hire. They're rent-a-cops. And getting to see them being rent-a-cops, we really haven't seen that. I mean, we've seen them as kind of thugs in the interim, but we haven't seen them functioning as cops, working within a legal framework since their original appearance. And so this harks back to that in a big way. And I like that return to their classic essence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another episode that takes place primarily on Earth. This marks yet another one in this season. Some folks have kind of noted that we aren't getting out into the wider universe as much as other seasons of Doctor Who, although this has been the case both in classical and even in modern Who. The balance has been,
and get ready for that trend to continue next episode.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
And
yet another
potentially
one.
The next 3 episodes, if the way this episode ended.
Right. Speaking of which, this is the 5th episode, which means we're in the middle of the season. This is the 5th episode of the season already, which is
and it was nice to see them do twists in mid-season instead of saving it all for the final episode or 2 of the season.
Yes, it gives us some time. So to get into the story, we have Ruth and Lee in Gloucester, England, not Massachusetts, which is where I am, but it's in Gloucester, England. It's Ruth's birthday apparently, and we see Ruth getting ready, and as she is heading out the door, she says, "All right, Monday, do your worst," which, never taunt Monday.
Never say that. Never say that.
Exactly. Ruth is apparently a tour guide in Gloucester. She's set up shop outside Gloucester Cathedral, and she's got all of this knowledge of Gloucester that she wants to lay on folks who come by. So that was fun. And there was a nice moment where a young lady sort of quizzes her on her knowledge, and she tells her, that Henry III was, I think it was Henry III, was crowned here in the 12th century. And she's like, meh. She goes, they filmed Harry Potter here. Oh, that's very interesting, she says. I thought that was funny. And then we see Ruth go to a cafe where the barista named Alan, a former bartender who now is a barista, a job shift, presents her with this dossier on her boyfriend Lee, who he thinks is a nefarious figure. So we're getting a little bit of misdirection right here off the bat. And he's trying to get her to go out with him. Although, for later on, it's implied, or I think outright said, that she's married to Lee. Like he's trying to break up their marriage, which is kind of weird, because he thinks she can do better than.
Well, he's a weird character as a whole.
Yeah,
and he doesn't know how to make hearts on the top of coffee.
Yes, he's a bad barista so far. So the Judoon,
on multiple levels, actually.
Yes, on multiple levels. And then we end this part of the episode with the Judoon firing some sort of beam from orbit at Gloucester, which we find out later sets up an exclusion zone around Gloucester, a large part of the city of Gloucester. Now, then we have the TARDIS, and Ryan and Yaz and Graham are on the TARDIS, the Doctor. And the companions are talking to each other, says, watching the Doctor at the console, says she spends hours at the console looking for something, thinking that the companions haven't noticed. And that she drops them off back home and says, I'm going to go do a thing. I'll be back in an hour. And then she's gone for ages. And when she finally comes back, and that she's off doing things without them. And they confront her. And of course, what she's doing is they confront her. They get her to tell them what she's doing. She's looking for the master. She thinks.
I like the way they confront her, because Yaz, she initially tries to duck the question, but the family started getting more assertive lately. And here Yaz says flat out, "Don't lie to us."
Right.
And it's at that moment that the Doctor says, "I'm looking for the master."
Right. And she's very moody about it, right? I mean, she's very kind of not the usual peppy Doctor self. There's this moodiness.
And she's letting the family down in order to look for the master. And this is nice, because Jodie Whittaker's character was basically 2 notes last season. There's the happy note, and then there's the scoldy note. And now we have the moody note, which is making her significantly more complex, because she doesn't always have the moral high ground, which she does if she's just being happy or scoldy. Here she's like letting her peeps down, and that makes her more interesting as a character.
And
Absolutely.
apparently the doctor doesn't want to tell them about what the master told her about Gallifrey and this other stuff. She's keeping close to the vest. So and they want her to take her, take them in, she go with her.
She's also when she disappears, saying she'll be gone for an hour and then it's longer than that. She's not just been looking for the master. She's been going home to Gallifrey.
Right. And she says she won't take them with her to Gallifrey because you ask too many questions. He kind of throws at them. And that's when they're interrupted by a Judoon warning beacon. When they set up around a planet for a police enforcement action, they set up a warning beacon to keep people away, I guess.
And this is something new on Doctor Who, where normally the Doctor goes somewhere and then adventure happens. But now the TARDIS has like email alerts for there's an adventure happening here. And do you want to check it out? Click yes or no.
Right.
Yeah.
A notification pops up. So she says, a platoon of Judoon near the moon? I'm not having that. as someone who likes puns and wordplay,
and deliberate callback to the Judoon's original appearance, which was on the moon.
Yes, the Judoon on the moon. So back on planet Earth, Ruth, sees the Judoon coming around. They're doing their old cataloging thing where they scan a person. They say not a fugitive, and they give them a hand stamp so they can get into the club later. But also that says that they're not what they're looking for. And this old woman who's been in the park knitting with Ruth refuses to be cataloged. First, they vaporize her knitting needles, which they said were weapons.
And then they give her compensation for the weapon.
Right. Because she'd been working on it for 9 weeks, that knitting. And then she refuses to be cataloged and walks away, and the Judoon vaporize her right there, which is, very shocking.
Her their exclusion bubble is basically like a killer force field.
Well, I'm not sure. No, he shoots at her, though. He shoots.
Does he? I thought she walked into a force field.
No. He executes her. Pretty sure. He executes.
It looked to me like she hit this green force field and vaporized.
All right, we'll have to.
It was different special effects from the blaster. The blaster's red, and they basically disintegrate. She you saw her skeleton and everything as it all disintegrated.
Yeah.
With the green outline instead.
All right, all right. Well, I'll have to rewatch it now because now I have to make sure I'm right, but we'll see. So we get back to then we have Lee, the husband, not boyfriend, the husband of Ruth, shows up at the coffee shop to pick up Ruth's birthday cake, and that's when the doctor shows up in the kitchen.
Alan has written the special birthday message, "You can do better." On the cake.
Which is like, ouch.
At this point, in fairness to although it's not exactly in fairness to Alan, but we, the viewer, don't know that they're married at this point.
Right.
So we don't realize that Alan is a homewrecker in the same sense. We think he's just trying to break up a bad relationship between a boyfriend and a girlfriend.
That's true. That's true.
Well, and as he sees the cake, Lee kind of turns to the side and goes, "Humans."
Yes.
Yeah. He kind of mutters "humans" under his breath.
Yep. And this is when the doctor and fam show up in the kitchen of the cafe, and she mentions the Judoon, and they run out. When Lee hears about the Judoon, he runs. He runs off. Graham kind of hangs behind because he realizes they're in a coffee shop and he sees the cute cupcakes and
get a cupcake
and is about to order something when he gets transmatted out when the doctor isn't looking. Like you just get zapped, which was scary.
By the way, something that I've been meaning to mention about the Judoon is their name is so frustrating to me because as a linguistics fan, so their language is built around apparently a non-inflected language where everything is built around individual open syllables. And the vowel that ends every open syllable is an O sound. It's and so how is their name Judoon? It should be like their name for themselves should be something like Jodo or Jodo-O or something like that. But how do you close that final vowel with an N, and how do you shift from an O in the first syllable to a U sound? So this is clearly somebody else's name for the Judoon. It's not, can't be their own name for themselves.
I'm going to make it worse. The Judoon's captain's name in the credits is Paul Condon.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I wasn't going to bring it up because they don't say it on the air.
Yeah. Although there's a reason for why it's named Paul Condon.
Right.
It was a fan
ahead.
who died, who was friends of Chris Chibnall's.
Yeah.
So named in his honor. But yeah, it is funny. All ears Alan. That's his self-proclaimed nickname. Then
barista.
Yeah. He when the Judoon come into the shop, he points out Lee as a suspicious character and gives them the dossier. But then he shoves the Judoon for making a mess of the shop. And assaulting an officer of the Judoon is apparently an executable offense, capital crime, and he's immediately shot and vaporized, which was, again, the same thing that they did to the old lady. But
yeah, I'm with Father Corey on this one.
I am not going to let that go. Fans, write in, listeners, write in and let me know if I'm right. So the doctor finally confronts the Judoon outside of Ruth and Lee's apartment building and does the psychic paper thing where she poses as an imperial regulator and shuts down the enforcement.
One thing I like that they've been doing with this doctor is she doesn't have control of the psychic paper.
Yeah.
Because other doctors, they would say, this is what I am. And of course, the psychic paper would show it. But she doesn't have, because there have been times they've done both. But so far with Jodie Whittaker, she has not had control of the psychic paper. Because remember, there was it last episode where she went through about like 5 or 6 things before it's like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. Because I remember.
So this time it's like she just shows it as like, you're an imperial investigator. Yes, I am.
I remember with Capaldi and Bill in Regency England there with the thing under the Thames, where he held it up and he was surprised by what it said. Mm-hmm. But you're right. At times he's had control, but this doctor doesn't have control.
And in A Christmas Carol, Matt Smith holds it up claiming he's a responsible adult, and it's just wavy lines.
Yeah.
So I like how in this scene the Judoon cite a specific subsection of some regulation for what they're about to do, and the doctor says, but that's suspended in this case by local Earth Law 12.
Yes, Law 12.
And they buy it.
Yeah. Well, then he goes, isn't that right? Liaison Officer Yaz.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Absolutely. That is the case.
Yes. Earth Law 12. Yeah.
Then she says, look at you and your platoon of Judoon near and she points to the canal. Lagoon, and Yaz kind of crashed. So it's more like a canal. Hey, don't mess with the rhyme. It's a lot of fun. The Judoon give her 5 minutes to negotiate, arbitrate with Lee to get him to come out of the apartment before they use some sort of time beam that has bad effects. Collateral
it's
effect.
Meant to freeze things in time, but it's going to kill people because it's not
safe.
Bad.
Yeah.
I like how in this episode, so they're setting us up so the doctor's going to be working with the Judoon here. And she's really kind of working with both sides. She's arbitrating. Yeah. But I like how instead of just being opposed to the Judoon, she's trying to work within the situation to help everybody achieve a reasonable outcome.
Right. And so then the next scene, we have the first of this episode's big surprises. We had some of us had heard that there was going to be someone returning from previous seasons of Doctor Who, a big character. There was talk of Donna or Martha. Let me be honest. I really wanted Donna to show up and find out that the Doctor is a woman now, because that would be awesome. I would love to see Donna's reaction to the Doctor being a woman now.
She was Space Girl.
Yeah.
So that would be very fun. But no, Graham wakes up now having been transmatted, and he's on a spaceship that's being shot at. We never see who's shooting at him, but it's being piloted by none other than Captain Jack, who is back, John Barrowman, who apparently had to fake a house renovation in Cardiff in order to keep it secret that he was filming this role for Doctor Who, which is a lot of fun.
He didn't fake it. He went through with the renovation, apparently.
He apparently ended up just doing the renovation anyway, that's commitment to the role. But yes, John Barrowman is back.
So at this moment in the episode, my heart is sinking because I'm thinking this is the big twist that Jack is back. Yes. And it's like, oh, yeah, not really mustering a lot of enthusiasm about that. Captain Jack has never been my favorite character.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I thought, though, before continuing on with Captain Jack is when I first saw the spaceship, I thought it was that Graham got beamed to the Shadow Proclamation because it looked a lot like the Shadow Proclamation building.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, the Judoon were involved there as well. I figured that was the connection. So, of course, that's part of the twist, too.
I thought it looked like an alternate TARDIS because it has this big empty space with a central console in the middle.
Yeah. There's a little of that, too. And so Captain Jack assumes once again that Graham is the Doctor. This is an ongoing
third
theme.
episode this season.
Yes, and he gets disabused of that notion and finds that the Doctor's a woman and is all excited. I have to say I'm a little tired of the whole Captain Jack as like sexual innuendo machine,
pansexual guy. Yeah.
I
mean, like he could be whatever he wants, I suppose, but it's just the constant. The comments, the constant.
He's like another 2-note character, and one of them is sexual innuendo.
Yeah,
they loaded it up big time in this episode.
They did.
Having said that, even though I'm not wild about him as a character, I did think that the dialogue they wrote for him was clever.
Yeah.
As he interacts with the companions. And it's like, there's 3 of you now. I had a dream about this.
Right. And he likes
Ryan gives him back talk, and it's like, you're my favorite.
Yeah, I did like that. His interaction with Ryan, that was fun. Meanwhile, the Doctor back in that apartment building with Ruth and Lee scans both of them. They come up as human, so she's confused. The Doctor searches the flat and finds a box that isn't from Earth.
Interesting that neither Lee nor Ruth tries to stop them from searching their house. People come into my house and want to search it. It's like, where's your warrant, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I forgot to mention that one of the things that Jack says to Graham in the first encounter is, I have to talk to the woman, to the doctor, because the future of the universe is at stake. So we something important.
Yep.
Okay. So the Doctor finds this little box that isn't from Earth, or it reads as not Earth, and then she's going,
and they don't just open it and look. As soon as they start getting all demandy about what is this thing, it's like, well, you could open it and take a look.
You've already searched their apartment. It's only another step forward to just invading a little more privacy. So they're going to. There's a lot of back and forth with Ruth and Lee and the countdown, and you've got 10 seconds left that lasts for 5 minutes. And
I really like how there's a moment where, they're trying to plan, how can we get Ruth out of here? Because the Lee's solution is take Ruth, go down the fire escape, and I will talk. I'll let the Judoon in here and they can talk to me.
Yeah.
And the Doctor's like, we can't get out of here on the fire escape. We're not going to be able to get past them. And then there's a moment where the Doctor, Yaz, and Ryan, all 3 together say, diversion. And so this becomes the plan. Yaz and Ryan, since Yaz is a police officer, she'll go down there. She'll
talk
use
procedure.
Police talk on them to keep them distracted while the Doctor gets Ruth down the fire escape, and then they'll bring him in to talk to Lee, who they believe is the fugitive. And that's a reasonable plan, although as soon as they get down there, Yaz doesn't use a whole bunch of police lingo. She just says, arbitration finished, arbitration result, you can go in.
Just, not much of a diversion, but at this point, Yaz and Ryan get beamed away now to presumably to Captain Jack and Graham. Lee, meanwhile, as the Doctor and Ruth are heading out, Lee says he's keeping his promise. He sort of says to himself while looking at the box, and then types a message into his phone. All we see is the word follow. We'll see the rest of the message in a bit. This is when the Judoon come in, and a Commander Gat shows up.
And Commander Gat looks human, but is in a stylized costume. And this is the moment where 20 minutes in, where I said to my, and I'd already had suspicions of this, but I said to myself, this is all going back to Gallifrey. This is it's a Gallifreyan fugitive.
Okay. All right. I didn't catch it. Was there something specific, or is that just instinct?
Just instinct based on her. I mean, I'd already been thinking Chameleon Arch. Mm-hmm. And then something about her bearing just said Gallifreyan to me. Right. And then later in this scene where she's talking to Lee, it turns out what's in the box is part of a Medal of Honor that's made of chronotelluric alloy.
Which is
got the word
thing.
Time in there, chrono.
Yeah. Okay.
And she refers to Lee as she kills Lee. And I've seen some people on the internet say one of the Judoon kills Lee. No, it's Gat.
Yeah.
Gat gats him with her space gat. And and as she does that, she refers to him as a faithful companion. And I said, this is clearly Gallifreyan. We've got a situation where you've got a major Time Lord is the fugitive, and he's the companion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because he is not the fugitive. They determine that he is not the fugitive, but for some reason that means he has to die. The Judoon object to her shooting him,
right.
But she comes up with some reason why it's okay. I have to be honest. I early on said Ruth is the fugitive.
Mm-hmm.
When Alan showed Ruth Lee's dossier in the cafe, I said, Lee is not the fugitive. This is misdirection.
Yeah,
that's just.
And I didn't suss out that it wasn't Lee that early, but by this point, it's definitely Ruth is a major Time Lord, and Lee is her companion, and she's Chameleon Arched herself, and
right.
he's in the Martha Jones role of he's the safety valve that knows what's going on.
Right.
And is sworn to protect her while she's in hiding.
Right. And
that makes the opening, the first scene so interesting because all you see is the wristwatch. You see Ruth's wristwatch.
Oh,
and that's
right.
an interesting reversal or interesting misdirection because you see it, counting down as she's waiting for her absolutely perfect toast.
That's right. That's right. The which is when the 10th Doctor had the Chameleon Arch, it was the pocket watch. Okay.
As well as the Master when he was Derek Jacobi.
That's right. This is the second use of the Chameleon Arch in this season. So the Doctor and Lee are in the Gloucester Cathedral now. They're hiding out there. Ruth gets the text from Lee. It says, "Follow the light, break the glass." And
happy birthday.
Happy birthday. And
which is another allusion. There's a double entendre there because as soon as she breaks the glass, it's her birthday all over again in another
sense.
She's reborn. She sees a vision of a lighthouse when she gets the text. And it triggers some instincts where she
suddenly becomes all River Tam from Serenity and takes down these Judoon.
Yeah, where have we seen that recently in Star Trek Picard? Exactly. It seems to be happening a lot these days. I'm waiting for my ninja moment. The Judoon corner the Doctor and Ruth in the cathedral. The Doctor tells them to respect the place of worship, which is interesting.
This is a place of worship. Show some respect. Nice.
Or I'll overload your guns.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't seem to be respecting.
That works.
Another time when the Doctor has
find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's another time when the Doctor confronts the bad guy in the cathedral, where we saw that in the Lazarus episode there. And it turns out that Ruth is the fugitive, but she doesn't know who she is. And the Judoon switched strategy because Ruth made it very personal by dishonoring the Judoon captain by snapping off his or her horn. There is a moment where someone refers to the Judoon captain as a she. I think the Doctor.
Doctor says woman to woman. Let us talk woman to woman.
Yeah. So
we can settle this woman to woman.
Right. Yeah. But snaps off the horn, which is apparently something that very dishonors because the Ruth apparently had this moment where she knows who she is of some sort or some part of who she is and is able to operate in the knowledge of the Judoon and what they're up to.
So she snaps off the Judoon's horn and then she punches the recall button on the Judoon's chest and she says something in Judoon, which is presumably a threat or get out of here or something like that, and then they all beam up.
Yes, beam back, and then the exclusion field goes away, and that's when the Doctor says they've switched strategy, and that's bad. It means that it's unpredictable. So she tells the Doctor about her vision of the lighthouse. It's where she grew up. It's her home when she grew up, and so that's where they're going to go. Now, we're back to Jack and the companions, and he says he has stolen this spaceship that they're on, and he activates some security feature that's going to attack his genes or something, nanogenes. And so he's got a very limited time to give them a message to give to the Doctor, which is, beware the lone Cyberman. Don't give it what it wants at all costs. And then he says their empire is in ruin finally, but that could all change. The Alliance sent a weapon back through time to stop them. So
now the nanogenes are a connection back to when we first saw Captain Jack, because of course it was from Empty Child, and he got that ambulance that was full of nanogenes.
That's right. The Empty Child nanogenes. Interesting. And we did see in the preview for next week something about a gas mask. Did you notice that? I
didn't.
Someone approaches someone laying on the ground that has a gas mask and a full environmental suit, like a World War I or II environmental. So, I wonder if that's related. So anyway, there's this message that they have to give them, and now we have the Doctor and Ruth go to the lighthouse.
The world's shortest lighthouse.
So this is West Usk Lighthouse. And since 2012, as I'm reading from the TARDIS Wikia, this lighthouse turned bed and breakfast has had a Dalek in the foyer and a TARDIS as changing room for the hot tub on the roof. So this is apparently a place where the fans of Doctor Who have put some stuff in there, and so they decided to film there, which is going to be great for business, I'm going to say.
Yeah, and things work out better in this lighthouse than they do in the Horror of Fang Rock. So it's not an everybody dies situation.
See, I was almost kind of half hoping this would be Horror of Fang Rock. I was almost half hoping it would be that same lighthouse.
I was hoping
Doctor
that
would walk in. This place looks familiar.
Yeah, exactly. I was hoping it too. So that the lighthouse, the Doctor sonics the Ruth's parents' grave. That's apparently a grave that's not marked. And as she digs it up,
and starts digging.
Yeah. It turns out she finds a TARDIS, which is the police box TARDIS.
I was going to say not just a TARDIS.
It's
the TARDIS,
right?
The TARDIS,
or a TARDIS that has the same camouflage circuit design. It was very confusing at first. Ruth finds a break the glass button inside the lighthouse.
And this is something weird is happening with Ruth at this point. When they come into the lighthouse, the Doctor's, there's this tense moment, and I have in my notes that at this point, it's eerie, it's fast paced, and it's dramatic, just as the feel of this episode. But then when they get into the lighthouse, the Doctor says, "Mind if I look around?" And Ruth takes a minute to reply and just stone-faced and says, "Sure." Yeah. And so the Doctor goes up to the second floor, which is the top of the lighthouse. It's so ridiculous. and Ruth says, I'll get a fire going. And I'm like, why? It is clearly like spring. Right. This is not cold weather.
It's the English coast. If that were Maine in spring, it would be the same thing. I would start a fire because it'd be cold. Well, it's not Southern California.
But I mean, it's all green outside.
Yeah.
It's like Maine. So in any event, I don't know why she's starting a fire. I thought this is maybe her programming kicking in or something, because after building the fire, that's when she sees the fire alarm. And some people, I've seen some people say, "Oh, there's Gallifreyan writing on it." No, it's hard to read, but if you freeze frame and look closely, it says fire alarm. and
that's an old school fire alarm. You see similar things like that here in the States too.
And it says break glass. And so now that she's built the fire, she looks at the fire alarm and she breaks the glass and everything comes back to her.
Right.
And then she does what every Time Lord immediately does upon being reborn, changing her clothes.
Yes.
Goes to the closet, gets out new clothes and puts them on, and gets a laser rifle.
Gets a laser.
Yeah.
And she comes out to where the Doctor is with the TARDIS, and she claims they go inside, and she doesn't know who the Doctor is at this point, by the way.
Who has not introduced herself all this time, apparently.
No, she didn't. And that's the funny part is the Doctor did not, because she just walked in. Everything I'm about to say is true, and then it goes from there.
and they go inside the TARDIS and they beam in to an old style console room, which is interesting.
I love that. It kind of had a lot of feel to the first Doctor, including I wouldn't be surprised at all if that is the console from An Adventure in Space and Time.
I wouldn't be surprised. That is the one
they rebuilt for that show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which they also used in the sequel to Face the Raven.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
Right. And the Christmas episode.
And her costume evokes William Hartnell's a little bit.
Yep. Although the loud shirt evokes
much better
the Sixth Doctor.
And she knows what, I mean, she says, I imagine this is confusing. Let me explain. I'm the Doctor. I'm a traveler in space and time. That's my ship, using William Hartnell's word for the TARDIS.
Yep.
She doesn't say time machine. She says ship. And then she explains it travels in space and time in relative dimensions in space. She knows she's coming across as the Doctor.
There's even some of the William Hartnell touchiness at times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will now, from now on, from the rest of this episode, refer to Dr. Jodie and Dr. Ruth.
Dr. Ruth?
I was going to say we should call her Ruth Doctor, so we don't call her Dr. Ruth. But...
No, I'm calling her Dr. Ruth, and that's that. So it's a Captain Jack episode. So they both assume that the other one is a regeneration in their future, but neither one of them remembers them in their past. How can this be? They don't. This is a confusing thing for both of them. This Dr. Ruth carries a laser rifle. This is I noticed, by the way, that was a big deal. And she's got a very different personality from Dr. Jodie. It's very interesting here. What was I going to say? Oh, I had something else I was going to say. There's kind of a big deal online. It's the first black female Doctor. And they do credit her as the Doctor in the credits.
Yes.
So, I mean, it is yet to be explained how she can be the Doctor.
I've got explanations for that.
You've got theories too. I've got theories about it too. So
we'll get to that, I guess. I don't care about the fact she's the first black female Doctor. I care about the fact she's an awesome Doctor. Exactly. I was going to say,
I like this Doctor.
I kind of like her a little better than Jodie.
Well, see, I was just going to say that. I've seen other people point it out too. It's like she outclasses Whittaker. She is much more interesting to watch as the Doctor than Jodie Whittaker is right now.
Yes,
a lot more bombastic. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how they have to be careful not to make fans prefer her over the regular Doctor. So that'll be interesting. The Sonic says that now that the biological shielding is gone, the Sonic says that Dr. Jodie and Dr. Ruth are the same person. So this isn't a case of mistaken identity or someone's bad memory. They are the same Gallifreyan Time Lord.
And they even start speaking the same dialogue at the same time because they share the same brain.
Oh, we just did that. And it's revealed that Dr. Ruth worked for GAT. It's in some way, shape, or form. GAT is apparently a Gallifreyan, as you mentioned.
My theory is GAT is CIA, Celestial Intervention.
That's
agency.
The obvious one. She says it's a job you don't volunteer for and can't leave. That's the Celestial Intervention. Which, of course, the Doctor
has worked for the CIA before. That's something we've seen before. So,
the Celestial Intervention Agency is, in case you don't remember, is a Gallifreyan spy agency who has the same acronym as the Central Intelligence Agency, but it's not the same thing.
That is not a coincidence at all. That's precisely what the showrunners did way back when they developed them.
Yeah. This is from Classic Who decades ago.
And so apparently GAT is an agent of the CIA who had the same training as Lee, because she refers to, that's the thing about her. That's the problem with our training. We both know the same tricks.
Right.
And so Lee is apparently also a Gallifreyan, and a CIA agent. And then apparently the Doctor got roped into being a CIA agent in this incarnation as well.
And they were able to track the Doctor and Lee because Lee kept his broken metal. Gallifreyan metal, and they were able to track it eventually, and that's how they tracked him down. The Doctor and Dr. Ruth and Dr. Jodie take the TARDIS up to the Judoon ship, and they are confronted by GAT and the Judoon. And Dr. Jodie realizes that the others don't know about the destruction of Gallifrey, so they must be from the past, right? And then the
and most telepathic doctor ever, fifth telepathy in 5 episodes. She makes contact with Gat and shows her an image of Gallifrey destroyed.
Right. Now, Dr. Jody really is frustrating here because Dr. Ruth gets the laser rifle taken from her, and now Gat is holding it on her and wants to shoot her. And Dr. Jody, who has been told, be quiet, I know what I'm doing here, has to start, try to talk him down and try to negotiate here. And Dr. Ruth is like, no, I've rigged the gun to explode when they fire it. A very violent version of the Doctor compared to Dr. Jody. And so
compared to Dr. Jody, yes, but not compared to other versions of the Doctor. I can easily see. I mean, Peter Davison's Doctor took a gun and shot a Cyberman directly in the chest.
Yes.
But I can easily see other versions of the Doctor sabotaging a gun and then saying, I begged them not to use it. I begged them not to use it to justify it.
Exactly.
Yes. Then once Gat is dead, and apparently Gat is not the person who hired the Judoon. She was operating sort of outside her what she was supposed to do.
By the way, I've seen some people say, wait, why don't Gat and Lee regenerate if they're Time Lords? It's because Time Lords can be killed in ways that don't let them regenerate, like if you disintegrate their body.
Like a gun that completely destroys them, not even leaves anything left to regenerate.
Right. Dr. Ruth now tells the Judoon, you're in interstellar space, so there is no jurisdiction here, and so we're free to go, even though the contract is still in force, apparently. And then the Doctor says, Dr. Jody, as she's back with the fam. The fam has come back. She says, time is swirling around me. Captain Jack, the Master Ruth, something is coming for me. She gets all melancholy, and the fam bucks her up. Hey, we're with you. We're here with you. And
also, she's more revealing than, because they've been building this Doctor as being secretive with the fam theme. Yes. And here, when they say, Yaz says, who is the fugitive? She says it was Ruth. And she could have stopped there, but then she says, and it turned out Ruth was me.
Right.
And so she's being more revealing with the fam now. That's good. That's nice progression of this arc.
That's true. So, what do you think? Who is Dr. Ruth? She's apparently,
this is the big topic.
Established she's the real Doctor, but who is she?
So, Father, you want to, or you want me to?
So, I'll just throw out my I had picked a fourth one, but you mentioned earlier, Dom, that it's clear that this is the same person. Because one thing I thought is maybe this was something like the next Doctor or someone else that got maybe the memories plus a little bit more, so that the person appears to the Sonic Screwdriver to be the same Doctor. But that I think is probably the least likely. One possibility is an alternate universe first Doctor.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
One thing I saw online, which I agree with the people online, I hope they're not going to go here, is it's actually pre-Hartnell Doctor. And I hope they don't go there. And then maybe a future Doctor who is completely forgotten who she was at the time of being Jodie, Dr. Jodie.
Only if Gallifrey comes back.
Right.
So those are the three most likely ones that I could see them going with.
We have had instances of the Doctor not remembering particular incarnations, like the War Doctor.
Yeah. And there was the Brain of Morbius episode that we've talked about before.
I want to talk about that.
And that's I'll turn that over to you.
That's your cue.
Okay. So the similar options occurred to me. Obvious one is this is a parallel universe Doctor. Another one is it's a time has been rewritten time clone Doctor. This is an alternate timeline of the same Doctor that branched off at some point. Another possibility is it's a hidden regeneration. She mentions moving to Gloucester in 1999 in mid-December. That's oddly specific. What else do we know happening in the Whoniverse in December of 1999? The Paul McGann regeneration.
Yep.
Over in San Francisco. So it could be some kind, I don't think this is it, but it could be hypothetically some kind of hidden regeneration that's hidden, like the War Doctor was a hidden regeneration. And it could also be a total trick. It could be someone who's just fooling. They really go out of their way to say it's not that. And it also could be someone who innocently, like Jackson Lake, believes he's the doctor, but isn't. Well, okay. So, and then finally, it's a pre-Hartnell regeneration. So, if it's any of those but the last, I'm going to be really disappointed. If it's a parallel timeline, if it's a parallel universe doctor, I don't care. That's just going to undercut the drama of this. If it's a fork in the doctor's timeline, that's going to undercut the drama of this. If it's a hidden regeneration that's within the ones we know about, that's interesting, but I don't see where it fits, because the only thing that did fit, the only missing point in the Doctor's sequence of regenerations was where the War Doctor was, because we had not seen Paul McGann's regeneration.
Right.
And so we didn't know, is there an incarnation that follows him? So they've sewn up all that now. If it's someone who innocently believes he's the Doctor, they've done that. That was the next Doctor. And if it's someone who's deliberately fooling the Doctor, I've seen that in Big Finish. I don't know how many times someone shows up claiming to be the Doctor, and it's going to undercut the drama of this. The only satisfactory payoff for this is a pre-Hartnell Doctor. That there was, and there's evidence in the show that there was a previous cycle of regenerations. We haven't got to this episode yet, but in the fourth Doctor episode, The Brain of Morbius, we meet a Time Lord named Morbius, and he engages in a mental battle with the fourth Doctor, with Tom Baker's Doctor. And in The Brain of Morbius, as they're having this mental battle, we see a screen that starts displaying images of the Doctor's face, starting with Tom Baker's, regressing to John Pertwee's, regressing to Patrick Troughton, regressing to William Hartnell, and then regressing further. And as that's happening, Morbius says, is your mind, Doctor, going? And then he says, how far, Doctor? How long have you lived? And then he says, your puny mind is powerless against the strength of Morbius. Back to the beginning. And you hear Tom Baker screaming like, not that far. And as this is happening, we see 8 other images of the Doctor. Mm-hmm. And you can look them up on TARDIS Wikia. Just look up the Doctor Brain of Morbius. Robert Holmes is even one of the previous incarnations, as are other members of the cast and crew, or of the crew. They wanted famous actors to volunteer for this, but none did, so they just played the part themselves. And they were serious about, these are previous incarnations of the Doctor. Like some of the showrunner, Philip Hinchcliffe, I believe, has said, I have played the Doctor in this sequence of images. At this time, there was no 12 regeneration limit. Right. And so that came along a little bit later, which Robert Holmes was one of the co-authors of this episode, and he's the guy who came up with the 12th regeneration limit. My guess is if you take the 8 that we saw in Brain of Morbius plus the 4 from the series, that would make Tom Baker's regeneration the last of the sequence. And my guess is that may have been the original plan, was to do for Peter Davison's Doctor what they did with Matt Smith's Doctor, and to juice the drama. It's like, this is the last regeneration. But then the plan went another way. So then come the 90s, when Andrew Cartmel becomes the showrunner or the script editor, he develops what's called the Cartmel Master Plan, which held that the Doctor was not an ordinary Time Lord, that he had originally been one of the founders of Gallifreyan civilization alongside Rassilon and Omega, and he was called the Other. And he had a set of incarnations as the Other, and then ended up falling into a genetic loom and coming out as William Hartnell, and not really remembering his time as the Other. And so it was during the Cartmel era that Chris Chibnall became a fan of the show. And so he could be reviving in some form the Cartmel Master Plan. I really would like to see them just come out and say there was a previous cycle of regenerations. The Doctor was working for the CIA, and as a result, they suppressed the Doctor's memory. That's the most and furthermore, since in the glimpse we saw of the Timeless Child was a little black girl, and now this version of the Doctor is a grown-up black woman. Maybe this is the first incarnation of the Doctor ever, and she's the Timeless Child grown up. And that to me is the logical way to pay off the drama they've set up here by saying this is the Doctor to us, and this is a past Doctor, and things like that. They're making a big dramatic promise to the audience, and that to me seems to be the most logical way to pay it off.
And the Master did kind of say, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about yourself, the Timeless Child.
Now, the one, I'm not saying this is going to completely burst the bubble, because it probably won't do anything to burst the bubble at all, but the Dr. Ruth's TARDIS was the police box. We know for a fact that the TARDIS did not become a police box until 1963 in the junkyard with William Hartnell Doctor. So I'm not saying that completely bursts the bubble, but I am saying, though, that does bring a question whether or not this is the particular path they're going to go. And I have seen people speculate that online, is that the Timeless Child is the Doctor, is that there are a series of regenerations before William Hartnell that the Doctor does not remember. So, I mean, that you could be absolutely 100% right. And it will be interesting to see how they play that, because that's a very careful thing that they have to tread there.
I do want to add, by the way, that there is a line of dialogue in this episode where Dr. Jodie says that she's, when they talk about her age, she's far older, that she doesn't even remember how old she is anymore. Right, she's far older. Which implies
the Matt Smith era didn't help that either, though, where he aged like 2,000 years over the course of 3 seasons.
I think Capaldi spent an eternity in the diary. Whatever. I
don't count that. That's just rebooting. Okay. That was just, yes, it did this whole thing, but the actual real time,
that's true. Think so. That's true. All right. Well, that would be fascinating. I like the idea of introducing this whole other part of the Doctor's history that that goes before William Hartnell, to find out who the Doctor was before. That would be interesting to me to find out, to dig into that. Given that the console room is the old console room, it lends credence to that for me. So, but you gonna say, Jimmy?
So a few additional things. Now, I will be very unhappy if they explain this away. They've made promises to the audience that are too big to just explain away. One thing that a couple of things that I predict. So the Judoon, when Dr. Ruth is getting ready to leave, she tells the Judoon, if you know what's good for you, don't come after me again. And the Judoon, as she's leaving, say Judoon contracts must be fulfilled. And so they're going to come after her again, presumably in the last 2 episodes of this season. And they're going to fulfill the contract. So Gat apparently was an agent. Dom, you said exceeding her authority, maybe, or I don't know if that's the case or not. But she was a junior agent dealing with this case. And according to the Judoon, what their contract specifies is they must deliver the fugitive to the contractee at the division. So they're going to grab the Doctor, take the Doctor to the division, and there turn her over to the Time Lord that contracted with them to get the Doctor. So that's part of what's going to be happening later in this series. The one thing that occurred to me, and they may not pay this off this series at all, because Captain Jack said he may not see us soon. He may not see the Doctor anytime soon, but he will be there when the Doctor needs him. So that could be setting up something for a future series. But given the similarity of what he said about the lone Cyberman, that the Cyberman is an empire of evil that's fallen into ruins and don't give it what it wants because it could all come back. That sounds, you strip off the word Cyberman and put in Time Lord.
Yeah.
And all of that works.
What if the lone Cyberman is a Time Lord who's been made into a Cyberman?
maybe. And so I'm wondering if that's not somehow what's going on with Gallifrey. Because the Doctor is not going to have a powerful temptation to give a Cyberman what it wants to bring back a cyber empire. Even threatening a companion is something that, the Doctor will feel bad about that, but it's not obvious that the Doctor would give in to that kind of demand. But bring back Gallifrey, that would put pressure on the Doctor to give in to her request.
Right.
So I wonder if there's something going on there. But we'll have to see.
It has been sort of revealed by folks that the Cybermen do return at the season finale this year.
Okay.
So we will see Cybermen this season.
Yeah. Also, we may get, now I've seen some people say, well, it looks like next episode is another Monster of the Week filler type episode. I don't think so. And there's at least I suspect it's not. And the reason I say that is this episode was written by Chris Chibnall, co-written. So apparently someone else did the initial draft, and then Chris Chibnall came in to write all the sensitive stuff about the Doctor's background. Right, well, guess what? Next episode is also co-written by Chris Chibnall. Yeah. And so I think we may be getting more sensitive stuff next episode.
Well, they pretty much explicitly say that because, they're right at the end of the episode, the TARDIS goes nuts and there's 3 warnings all over Earth, and let's go find out what's going on. And they take off. And so it's pretty clear the next episode is a continuation of that. This episode, by the way, was co-written by Vinay Patel, who wrote Demons of the Punjab.
Yes, last season. Yeah.
So
and did a good job. This was a good episode. Yes. And Chris Chibnall co-writes the next episode too. So that's right. That evidence.
Exactly. As we're doing, kind of more things going forward. One thing I will say is the season 12 console room still looks hideous, but at least it's brighter. You can actually see the walkway into the rest of the TARDIS, unlike season 11, where it was dark. I love the old classic Beetle. And then
the car. Yes. Yeah.
The old Beetle car. And then
I like you mentioned the TARDIS control room. I like how it goes blue now. And that means something. So like here is the TARDIS that you got a new text message coming in about an adventure you might be interested in. It goes blue and she's like, you're siding with them, aren't you?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Start talking to the TARDIS. And then Gat mentioned something, of course, we've heard for years that's been part of Doctor Who history. 2 of the same Time Lord can't occupy the same space at the same time. It's an abomination. You'll destroy the time streams before reaching Gallifrey.
Yeah, but
so that idea that crossing the time stream, don't cross the time streams.
Except that doctors have done that.
Well, many times. They kind of qualify it saying you'll destroy the time streams before you get to Gallifrey, right? Which I think is where Division headquarters is, where they need to turn them over, maybe. Right. But they've actually done that because the 5 Doctors has all 5 Doctors in the Death Zone on Gallifrey together. So they really play fast and loose with the Blinovitch limitation effect. But they do maintain this myth among Time Lords to reinforce the laws of time that this is super duper ultra mega dangerous. Right. But it maybe that's like, only a tiny fraction of Trills can really be symbionts.
Yep.
Right. Okay, so any other notes on this episode?
And just kind of one final thing is this obviously was a episode to honor Russell T Davies. So many things from his era came out in this. The Judoon and Jack Harkness and the Psychic Paper and some
Chameleon Arch. Yeah.
Chameleon Arch. So
yes, there's a lot of stuff that originated with Russell T Davies. That's true. All right, so lots to look forward to next week. I had to say so far, one stinker of an episode this season, but the others have been pretty good. And this one, I enjoyed this one a lot. So I'm looking forward to where we're going with this. This has been good.
I enjoyed this even more than Spyfall. I think this is the best thing Chris Chibnall has done.
Yes. We'll have to see how the YouTubers spin this one. How horrible it must be. Why is the downfall of Doctor Who. Anyway. We'll end on the high note of how much we like it. So before we head out, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create The Secrets of Doctor Who, including Colleen H., Colin M., Ann S., Karen S., and Whitney B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest, you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. By the way, we always look forward to your feedback. We love getting feedback from you. This might be one of the first episodes where we got a lot of feedback before we even did a recording about it. A lot of fun. We were getting people posting on our Facebook page. Thank you to UK listener Bennett Gillespie, who gave us a warning: avoid internet spoilers, because he saw it hours before we did, of course. So thank you very much. So if you do want to send us some feedback or tell us what you thought of Fugitive of the Judoon, let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/Doctor Who or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or via email to doctorwho@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode, Praxeus. Until then, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me in sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest. And remember, all right, Monday, do your worst.
Right. This is going to be fun.